All right, y'all. So time for the final video for chapter 2, the application video. There were plenty of application points in this passage from my perspective. I am trying to keep it to where I only share 3. Each passage is going to have its own amount of richness. So if you see more, that's awesome. Keep those in mind. Share them in the comments below if you want to. I'm not restricting anybody to just 3, but for the video's sake, I'll just be doing 3. So application point number 1 from my perspective. God will work through those who are willing when those who are supposed to be willing are not. So I was thinking about King Herod, the chief priests and the teachers that he calls together, and how that they're Jewish. They are Jews. But when these magi come along saying, hey, there's a star, the king of the Jews is here, he's going to be born. We know it from, at least we think it from our astrology standpoint. Their response as Jews wasn't excitement at the thought that the Messiah could actually be there in their lifetime. Their response was to be disturbed, to be frightened or agitated. On the flip side of that, you have the Magi who come in, and not only are they excited, but we can see plainly in their display of worshiping Jesus, in their display of bringing gifts to him, the honor that they show him. One word that it uses, it said that they were overjoyed. It's the complete opposite of what you would expect from each party. So God will work through those who are willing when those who are supposed to be willing are not. I thought that was a pretty interesting application that I want to take to heart and think about more. A second application I saw, when you have faith, worship can be powerful. The Magi specifically, they didn't know everything, but they knew and believed something, and that was enough. So like we said, they weren't Jewish, so they didn't have all of the history of being brought up as a Jew. Who knows how much scripture they knew, but they did come to Herod and had to come bring together the chief priests and the teachers of the law and that kind of stuff to be able to become aware of that verse that said, in the town of Bethlehem. The point being, they only had a little piece of the picture, but the piece of the picture that they did have, they believed wholeheartedly. And because they believed that little piece so wholeheartedly, they traveled all the way from the east to find this little baby that they believed was the king of the Jews. And they presented him with worship. They presented him with all these gifts we mentioned. They presented him with all that honor due that person they believed had just come into the world. Sometimes we feel like we have to know everything before we can offer God worship, before we can offer him our lives and that kind of stuff. And though the Magi weren't saying, okay, we're now Jews, they were 100% in it to go find this king of the Jews and offer him the worship they believed he deserved. So if we could kind of apply that to our own lives today, the moments that we have with God, where we see some of his person, we see some of his character, maybe we don't have the whole picture. We don't have all the knowledge. You know, people are always in arguments about, well, this and this, this and that. And it's like, I don't know it all. I don't know most of it, you know? But I've had moments with God where he's shown himself as real in my life. And it's those moments that I feel like if we could just, as individuals, learn to draw strength from, learn to let that compel us, just like even with these non-Jewish magi, how they were compelled to come all the way from the east and do all that we just talked about. How different would our lives look? So, application point number 3, my final one, Joseph and Mary, examples of 100% faith. I was thinking about how that in this passage alone, just this chapter, Joseph, 3 different times, Joseph and Mary, 3 different times, are either warned or are told by an angel of the Lord in a dream to move away, to move back. The first one was the angel of the Lord told Joseph, hey, leave Israel, go to Egypt because Herod's going to try to kill your son. He's going to try to kill Jesus. And then later on, the angel of the Lord tells him, hey, you go back to Israel. And then finally, when he goes back to Israel, the angel of the Lord tells him, don't go to Judea. It's not safe there. Herod's son is there, and he's bad as well. Just the trust of Joseph and Mary to uproot their family, move to a different country, uproot their family, move back to Israel, but to a place, for all we know, they could have been not that familiar with. It was 55 miles north of Jerusalem rather than 6 miles south of Jerusalem. So who knows? But the point being, they had a little bit of knowledge. God gave them an instruction, and he gave them a little bit of reasoning why. Herod's going to try to kill Jesus. And they took that and they ran with it. And so learning how to have 100% faith, once again, with what we know versus being distracted by all the things that we don't know. Continuing to learn, continuing to grow, continuing to seek God for all that he has for us, but really taking advantage of what he has already given. So that's my 3 points of application for chapter 2 of the Gospel of Matthew. I'm really interested to see what else you guys have recognized and been processing during this video segment. Let me know in the comments. Feel free to share this with people that you feel like might benefit from these Bible studies. Don't just shoot it out randomly to people. But if you have friends in your life who would appreciate a place like this, they are more than welcome. So there we go. Chapter 2 is in the bag. Let's keep on digging for that treasure. And we'll see you in the next videos where we look at chapter 3. Have a good one.